Hi everybody, my name is Stephen Loetta, and this is my presentation on theories of learning. So the first theory of learning is social and contextual. Essentially, this is the idea that learning is a shared process which takes place by observation, working together, and being part of a larger group. Um, Under this theory, each person brings a unique perspective which all can learn from. Not only that, but learning is done through a social interaction, social environments. So I chose the picture on the right hand side because it shows students or people network together. And this is the way that this theory represents that people learn through working together and feeding off of each other. So in my classroom, for example, we just did a unit on India, or we're beginning a unit on India, I'm sorry. But before we learn about India in the past, I want students to learn about India in the present time. So I gave each student a theme to focus on, or each group of students a theme to focus on. Government, military, climate, regions, things of that nature. And students collaborated and worked together and then presented their findings to the class. I found this to be a good way to introduce a topic to students, to engage them, to get them curious about something. They became experts in their field, and they were happy to present their findings to their peers. So the next theory is constructivism. And this theory basically says it's self-regulated learning. So the learner takes an active role in constructing his or her own understanding rather than just receiving it from an expert in the field, from a teacher, for example. So under this theory, learning takes place through observation, through processing, and then essentially through interpretation. So I use Inspector Gadget because this is what this theory states. Students are given tools beforehand, and then they seek information on their own with the tools provided by teachers. This really tends to inquiry lessons, I think, and I've done this with my students. So for example, on a lesson on child labor, I had a picture file, and before giving them any information, I posted, it was about 25 pictures, black and white, of child labor back in the 1800s. And students saw the connections right away, like, okay, they're kids, it happened a long time ago, they're working, looks like they're tired, looks like they're being forced to work. I stopped them and had students discuss with their peers if they thought child labor still happened today. Most of them said no. Then I went on to the next set of pictures, and they were in color and they were more modern, and same context. So kids were dirty, they were working, and students started to make connections on their own. So learning was happening. I was just facilitating it. But in this lesson, they were first observing, they were processing the information, then they were interpreting it after having discussed it with their peers. The next theory is behaviorism, and essentially this is a reward or punishment system in order to facilitate learning or to encourage learning. The idea being that if students are on task and focused and doing and acting in a manner that the teacher deems appropriate for the environment, you reward them. So you encourage students to act a certain way. Conversely, if a student is being disruptive or not really focusing his or her attention to the class, you may punish to discourage certain behavior. So I put the carrot there because essentially that's what it is. You give a student a reward or a consequence dependent on their action. So for my classroom, for example, if students come into class and take their laptops out within 1 minute, then my positive reinforcement is when the bell rings, they get to line up first to leave. A negative reinforcer would be if students aren't on task at the beginning of class and they're wasting my time, then I quote unquote waste their time by taking away 1 minute of their lunch. The next theory is connectivism, and this theory was interesting because it really incorporates technology. Basically, it's the idea that learning and knowledge rest in the diversity of opinion. So seeking other resources for information, not just going based on one source. And that's really how we learn today. We don't take in information just from one source. We go online and we look at 5, 6, 7, 8 different sources. We take in information on our cell phones through CNN, MSNBC, and whatever other source, Bloomberg News, for example. So that's why I chose that picture there, because it's essentially connecting students to the outside world through technology. Basically, it's the ability to see connections The ability to see connections is a core skill that needs to be developed under connectivism. Not only that, but connectivism provides insight into learning skills and tasks needed for learners to flourish in the digital age. One way I've incorporated this into my classroom is through blogging. We use My Mentor on campus because students all have a laptop, and there's a blogging site, and we're reading Me Llamo Bud Not Buddy, it's a Spanish language arts class, and I'm having students blog about characters or blog their beliefs, and students love to share their opinion on it, and I've had good turnout. I see students blogging late at night, early in the morning, logging onto each other's pages to see what their friends have written. It's been good in my classroom. It's worked really well. So the next theory is experientialism. Essentially, this is the argument that people learn from experiences and concrete experiences at that. Once they've done those concrete experiences, they can observe and then reflect. As a teacher, our role is to encourage this, to facilitate it, not dictate what they should be learning or what they need to know. So in my classroom, I chose that picture because last year when I taught 10th graders, we were learning about the Industrial Revolution. And instead of just talking to students about what the experiences was like, I had them live it. So I lined them up right next to each other within close proximity. I hired the air conditioner to like 77 or 78, so that was uncomfortable for them. And then I had them repeat a process for about 45 minutes. I think we're on block schedule that day, if I remember correctly. And they got to experience what it was to work on an assembly line under these conditions that they didn't care for. So about 35 minutes in, they started complaining that their hands hurt, that they were cramping up. And this lesson was something that even my last day of school, when I had students reflect and to tell me what they liked, this was during my student teaching, by the way, they really brought up this lesson, that they remembered this. I went back this year, at the beginning of the school year, just to say hi, and a lot of them like, Mr. Lawyer, do you remember that lesson we did, or you made my hand hurt? So it was good. It was fun or at least enlightening for me to know that these lessons stuck with students. And the last theory is cognitivism, which focuses on the transmission of information from someone who knows to learners who do not know. So learners receive it, take it on board, store it, relate to existing files, they file it, and then eventually retrieve it when needed. That's why I chose that picture, because it kind of reminded me of a computer. The way you input information, the computer puts it onto its motherboard, onto its hard drive, and it's stored there and then retrieved when we need it. We need to pull the file back. And it's also making connections through meaningful and memorable ways. So my example of students remembering that lesson is an example of connecting through meaningful and memorable ways. And it's more concerned with the process. So in my classroom, for example, direct instruction lessons on when words take accents would be an idea of cognitivism. Because in this instance, I'm providing material. Students are receiving it, they're writing it down, they're storing it, and then they relate it to existing ideas. So I might go around the classroom and ask, does this word take an accent? Yes or no, and why not? After having discussed what the rules are for accenting words in Spanish. Then students are processing that information and then retrieving it for a test, for example. So these are the 7 learning theories that I've discussed. Thank you very much, and have a great night.